I just stacked this dude.
All right, so we are playing some heads up today. I've sat 4 tables and just got some action here. So we'll kind of just go through heads up basics. I've been playing a little bit of heads up lately, and it's been going okay. Ace high has some showdown value here. Now it definitely has some showdown value. In fact, if he bets, we'll call, and if he checks, we'll bet. And he did. He flatted King Jack pre and then made a tiny blocker bet on the river. Sometimes with better reads, I would raise there, but given the situation, I have no reads on him yet. I didn't want to raise a 1-pair bad kicker type hand and find out he was playing a flopped flush that way or something. So we go for the call, and I think we'll call him down here too, though I'm not in love with it. Now we'll definitely be calling river if it's a small bet. Probably chopping. He's going to show ace-5, so he was ahead. Interesting bet on the turn. So this is probably not a super strong player by any means, though he has been min-raising. I've noticed this is a super common theme in heads up. I do it all the time, and almost everyone. I was even playing some 10NL heads up yesterday, so 5 cent, 10 cent, just because I saw that they had 5 cent, 10 cent tables at heads up, which they never did on full tilt back in the day. So I was interested to check it out. I sat, and they were even min-raising the majority of buttons back there. But this guy has min-raised a button, and then he just limped a button. We also saw that he didn't take the opportunity to 3-bet his King Jack pre-flop, and he made a really strange bet on the river. I think you could bet for value there sometimes. But if you're going to bet for value, you think there's worse hands that would call. $1 is kind of weird, and some really bad things can happen. Some players might perceive that as weak. So he limped the button with aces. So good to know. Obviously, a pretty heinous misplay. He was going for a trap, and if he never limps any other hands, like he always min raises, we'll know that when he limps it's really strong, he's afraid of us folding, or he's trying to set a trap. But the problem is it'll actually do the opposite. It'll essentially keep the pot small and tip us off to the strength of his hand when he has a strong hand. 2 really, really pretty crucial errors. So I haven't decided yet if I want to go for min raising the majority of buttons or playing a pretty straightforward 3x style. I like playing both. To guys who just fold pre-flop all the time, I just min-raise literally every single button when that fold to c-bet hits 66. Against guys who play a little more straightforward, sometimes I'll just do the 3x. We are going to call him down here, though. It's starting to feel like he has an ace. I will check raise this river small and fold to a shove, and that small bet tells me we're probably good. So I'm going to make it 5 more and hope for a call. Hopefully he has just an ace, not aces up, but it certainly smells like an ace the way he played this hand. When he bet $1.50 on the turn, I felt like he probably had an at least somewhat decent hand. But of course, when we turned 2-pair, and he did, he had ace-8. The river call, by the way, it's not drawy enough. Like, what draws could I have missed that I'm turning into a bluff? So it'd have to be a pure bluff. I guess 10-jack, queen 10, queen jack, and he probably doesn't know that I would 3-bet a lot of those hands pre-flop, at least queen jack. So I could definitely see it. Maybe somebody bluffing there. It would be such a weird check raise bluff. No one ever check raise bluffs. So I think, by the way, I make this mistake all the time too, where I call the river. But I think you could fold 1 pair there, even as strong as top pair. I don't think he expected me to have king 7, but I wouldn't be surprised to see someone show up with ace deuce or ace king there. Ace 4 should probably be raising the flop, hoping that they have a part of their range that can call, because that's a monster hand you want to build. I guess it's an okay call. I just can't think of any hand. If we had the ace-8, I can't think of any hand we beat. Okay, so he's limping again, and maybe he'll bet we'll fold and he'll show us something. So he just checked back. It's possible it's a good ace again, or aces, or a set. I hope he bets, and I hope he shows when we fold. I want to see what he is limping the button with. He doesn't show that time, and I imagine he would have showed if he had a set. So he's not just limping aces. He could have had almost anything. And so far we've seen so he's 33% pre-flop raising, and they've been min raises, and he's limped 2 buttons now. He's probably min raised. I mean, I know he's min raised a few. So he's doing some interesting stuff. Bottom pair here, we will c-bet. even though there's not a ton of draws in his range that would come along. And if we are getting full stack action over here, I would close those tables down. Actually, I might leave them open. You never know if a bigger fish is going to sit down. And yeah, the guy only has $15. I actually hate playing guys with $15. They're usually pretty bad. Problem is, usually if you stack them, you win 15 minus rake, however much rake you paid over that course of time. And the opposite of that is where they just like run like God or outplay you and build up a huge stack. I've had guys start with 15 and end up leaving with like 150, and I'm just shaking my head going, how did I let that happen? So it's nice when you just stack them and make a quick $15. I expect King High to be good here, by the way, pretty often. Let's see if he bets the river, though. I might look it up. If it's like $1, I'll look it up just to see what he's min-raising and checking back 2 streets with, because that's pretty strange. It's $5, so we're obviously going to fold. It's most likely a really terribly misplayed full house or possibly a running flush. Just, you should always be betting the turn there. If he's overbet bluffing for 2.5 times the size of the pot, so this guy just leads. We have queen high, no real good draws, so we're going to fold. Back to this hand, I have king high. I thought it would be good for $1 or $1.50. Probably would have folded for a full pot size bet because they usually have a value hand when they do that. I imagine it's something like a running flush, like a terribly played boat. Like I said, pocket queens, threes, fours, 3-4, ace 4, pocket aces, something just pretty heinously misplayed. We're going to min-raise. And yeah, I don't know what to make of it, to be honest with you. So now we need a 9 for a straight. I don't know if this guy wants to fold to 2 barrels. I'm going to check it back. We make a pair. I doubt it's good. I think he's going to check and show us a queen, but if he bets, I imagine he has an ace or aces up or possibly queen 8. So we are going to fold. Here I'm going to check back. If it's lower than a jack, I'm going to try and get 2 small streets of value, and that's actually a good card for us to get value. Queens will call, aces might call, 10s will probably call 2 streets. So we will go for a value bet and then probably a $2.50 value bet on the river. Now, if he raises at any point, we'll probably let it go. Bad news, I wanted him to call with a queen. Now the queen has gotten there, so we'll probably give this up if he blasts it, which it seems like he's taking his time to do, and we'll definitely check it back if checked too, because 9-10 got there, some weird other straights, and then the obvious straight of queens. The 7 is now a straight. I'm going to check back pot control and call rivers, and I'm going to fold here. Here we got a full stack. So we'll keep this, we'll play this guy, but I'm not going to let him run a huge stack up on us. He just checked the river, and I think we'll try and squeak out some small value against like a 1-pair type hand, though some 2 pairs would check call this river. So we got 3 big blinds on the end there. With how quickly he called, we probably could have gotten 4 or 5. All things considered, given that board, we'll take it. 6, 7, 8, 9. It's not a bad bluffing board, though. He does have some straights, too. We will fire a second barrel and see if we can take it down, which we do. So, no idea how this guy plays. That was either our first or second hand. And this one, I thought about leading because it prevents him from bluffing, and King High is pretty good here. He limped the button. I don't know how many 3s would be in that range, so I am going to peel one off here. I don't like that card because I think he would bet his flush draws, and I think he does have some queen high bluffs. So we made top pair here. I called pre. I don't generally 3-bet the ace-6. I'm going to look this up just to see what he's doing this with. Okay, so he's limping ace-4 offsuit on the button. That's actually pretty valuable information. Here we have top pair, and we're just going to be calling down all 3 streets. And I will value bet that. Small. We make trips. Actually, we have a boat. I think we'll just bet. I don't want him to check back ace high, which has showdown value. I think he'd call with ace high, maybe. And obviously, we'll be calling here. And obviously, we'll be betting that turn. So he decided to spaz his boat. The king obviously was good. We had top pair, good kicker, and a gut shot to a good straight, so pretty valuable hand that we decided to bet. And we can move this table up here. Since we have 2 full stacks, I think we'll just focus in on these 2 tables. It makes it easier to commentate and give some insight onto the actual hands. Our c-betting range, especially like our worst hands has no showdown value. I am going to throw in a c-bet and try and take it down. Let's make these a little bigger as well. Queen 9 suited, you can play it either way. You can either defend with it, you can 3-bet with it. I don't think it's a great 3-bet hand. I think it plays better, and we flopped a pair. I think it plays better as a defend because it makes a lot of mediocre good hands. It doesn't make a ton of like nut hands. So he just check min raised, pretty annoying. We are going to peel and then call down if we make 2 pair of trips. I don't think we're going to do anything too crazy in this hand. Now we did turn a bad flush draw. So if a heart comes off, we might have the best hand. I expect us never to have the best hand. The way he check min raised, I assume it's like a weak top pair hand, a flush draw, a straight draw. The straight draw's either got there or paired. So I do want to see what he has though. So you had 9-10, you had second pair, no flush draw, and he check min raised. So that's pretty good to know. Obviously, we're playing a couple pretty good, we're in a couple very good spots. These are both fairly weak players. That kind of play is essentially unjustifiable. He did happen to kind of run into the part of our range that we'll get value from a king, and if he has nothing, like he can fold some, I'm going to bet this too. Prevent a bluff. Ace high is usually good here. We have a backdoor straight flush, or nut flush draw. 8, 9, 10, jack, queen. I'm going to check call, unless he bombs it for more than the size of the pot, though I do expect him, when he bets, to kind of have a king pretty often. But no, he was bluffing. He shows the ace high, and pretty bad turn call. Pretty bad turn call. No showdown value on that board. Ace high does have showdown value here, by the way, but I don't think I want to go for a double call down. Now I definitely am calling river, though. I expect to see a 7 sometimes, and when he checks, we almost always have the best hand. I'm going to let him have a chance to bluff too, if that's his style. I'll give him the opportunity. So this guy hasn't reloaded. Bad news, less money on the table. Good news, probably a fish. The stronger players essentially always just top off regularly. I'll give him one last opportunity to bluff, and I will call. I don't know what he's limping in with, but I want to see it, and I think we have the best hand somewhat often. He did hit a jack, so we're playing against a player who limps on the button with jack 6, river's top pair, and does not bet it. So obviously both of these are very good spots. This is annoying. So we have second pair, open-ended straight draw on this board. It's possible he flopped a flush. Now we did turn some outs if he flopped a flush, but we are going to try and keep this pot small. It's also possible he just has, the ace of hearts or something. I'm not in love with this. We can't beat anything except a 10 or a missed heart, but I do want to see what line he would take. He's also giving us about 5 to 1 on the money, so I'm going to look it up. Makes perfect sense. King, queen, though I would 3-bet that pre-flop. I think you could fold that river. You can't beat a 9 anymore, and I don't think anyone would bluff a lone heart for that small. It just shouldn't get a fold very often. So I don't think we win super often, even though we only have to win 20% of the time. But I think the fact that we'll definitely win sometimes. Players make bad bluffs for big sizes, small sizes. They make all sorts of mistakes. It's a really small 3-bet, so I'm tempted to call, but our stacks are not even 100 big blinds, and I'm going to let him get away with the 3-bet there. Queen high might be good here, but I'm going to kind of just try and get to showdown and see what he's limping here. It looks like queen high is going to be good, though I am interested to see what he limped the button with and never bluffed. Like, if you're limping the button, you should at least be trying to take the pot at some point, and he lets queen high win when he had 7-8, so obviously a pretty substantial mistake. We will c-bet almost 100% of our flops. That's actually a good bluffing card. I'll make a little continuation, though I expect most spades to call. Obviously any ace, any queen should still call, and we are going to check this back. I expect to win almost never. So he had a pair of 7s with the 10 high flush draw, so pretty legitimate call on the turn there. Here's one of the problems with low stakes heads up. So I'm back down to even, and he's stuck $7. So we paid $7 in rake in about 15 minutes. So paying $28 of rake per hour makes it a rougher game to try and beat. But it is still pretty soft, and there's still plenty of opportunities to win. So we will continue to see bet. This board is, not great, but not terrible. King highs are usually good. When he calls, and we saw a second ago, he probably doesn't trust us, and he probably, I want to see what he has. He had queen high, so good to know. And we make 2 pair here, so we'll try and get 2 big blinds on the end. A pair, so he's pretty loose, so we'll probably value bet that for 2 streets. And then see what we want to do on the river. So he limped with queen 4 offsuit, and then check called the flop. Very bad play. In fact, I'm going to kind of cut down on my c-betting if he's going to be making plays like that. This guy's limping pre too, so we're in 2 very good spots. If you're ever sitting at a heads-up table and guys are habitually limping in pre-flop, you're essentially have a 99% chance of being in a good game. I can't think of any good player that just limps a bunch of buttons in a heads-up cash game. I know some tournament players will, especially give stack size considerations, limp a lot of buttons. But in heads-up, 100 big blind deep cash games, there's really no excuse to be limping in. This is going to be a perfect example if he doesn't raise. Hopefully he limps so I can show you exactly why this is bad. So he had 50 cents for free. I mean, literally, I was ready to give him 50 cents straight up. And so we make 2 pair here, obviously going for the value bet. And now we might end up winning the pot. In fact, it looks like we will. I was afraid he was going to do that. I think he's going to show us 8-10, but I'm not good enough to fold kings up for a min raise. I'm almost positive he's going to show us 6-8 or 8-10. Problem is he might be slow playing jack-7, jack-9. Now he could have king-9, which would kind of be brutal. But 8-10, that just it felt like 8-10 to me when he checked back that turn, or however the turn played. I thought it was a little fishy the way he paused, and he does end up taking that down. And like I said, now we're both stuck because of rake. So now we've got 5s and 4s. Any 2 beats us, any 7 beats us, 2 diamonds beat us. I called because we had the open-end straight draw. I don't put him on a flush, so I thought we probably had some outs that we could check call when he might bluff. Now I'm really not in love with it. I'm trying to figure out what we can beat, and lots of missed diamonds, lots of high missed diamonds, and he did take a while to make that bet, so I am considering looking him up here. How many 2s and 7s would he have in his range? How many 2 diamond hands would he have in his range? I think I'm going to look it up just to see what he's doing this with. Oh, okay. So he flop trips. So he limped in with king 4, which I expect a player like this to do. And then he raised the turn with the trips. Makes some sense in hindsight. It was such a weird line that he convinced me he might just have like the king, jack, or queen of diamonds and be doing something weird. So we end up paying him off, unfortunately. So I have become a bit of a payoff wizard lately, and it's a kind of okay in close spots to pay a slight premium for some information. I don't think you should be paying as much as I just did if you think your hand's bad often enough, just to find out what he has. Obviously, you can't just call people down to find out what they have, but it is interesting to me. So limps in with king 4, good to know. Calls flop, small raise turn. Actually makes good sense, and I think I might have been able to decipher that if I hadn't been kind of zoned in on what was going on this table as well. And we are going to fold here. 1 pair, he snap min raises. Even if he does this with 5s, we can't beat that. So we are going to let that go. And will he show? No. So he won't show, and they won't let me buy chips in time. That's annoying. But we have a money-making hand. This board I'm not interested at all in anymore. We're just going to go to showdown. He's going to show a pair. Maybe I could have barreled him, but I'm not going to try and barrel these guys. Both of these guys are kind of fishy. They have sub 2.0 aggression factors. They like to check and call. I don't think they trust me because I've showed down a couple hands where I raised pretty weak, and had to show it down because I didn't want to fire another barrel. So I think we'll just go for some value bets against these guys. And this guy is sitting out. This guy min 3 bets, so we'll peel one off here. Unfortunately, not the flop we're looking for. And we're going to take this to showdown as well. Possibly win now. Ace king, 5. So we sucked out a little 3-outer there. This guy's sitting out, but hasn't left the table. So I'm going to give him an opportunity to sit back in because he's a pretty weak player. And if he doesn't, then we'll close it out and find another table to play. We've already been playing 20 minutes. We're probably down a negligible amount now, maybe even or up a negligible amount because of that that guy who dumped $15 to us. Here we have a double gutter. Unfortunately, he just folds. Probably okay, though. I like barreling some of those. I like when they call flop fold turn, preferably, unless you make your hand and you want him to call. So he limps the button. We flop nothing. I'm probably just going to not go crazy. If we flop like even a gut shot, I'm tempted to lead some. But 6 high, we have a backdoor bad flush draw. We have a backdoor bad straight draw. Really no reason to try and steal that one. So we'll let it go. So I'm folding to steal 60% of the time. He's only at 47, so we can tighten it up and kind of be valuing it. This guy very rarely folded to steal, but he also didn't steal very often. Obviously, an ace will be in our opening range still, and we'll see if he keeps doing this like weird min 3-bet thing. The reason min 3-bets are just outright horrendous. First off, if you're making normal 3-bets, and you decide you're going to start doing some min 3-bets, you have to balance that range. So now you have to come up with a new range to balance, and it doesn't seem like something you need to spend a bunch of time on. And it also just lets the person in position play in a small, medium-sized pot, so the SPR is still somewhat deep, but I mean not really deep. You shorten the SPR with their position, but giving them like essentially odds to call with any 2. So I make it $1.50 and he makes it $2.50. So I have to risk 1 into 4 with position. There's like almost no hand I would consider folding pre-flop given that line that I'm willing to open. Maybe if I was playing a style where I was opening 100% of big blinds to 3x, I would do that. I might fold if they clicked it back. I'd do 7 offsuit, and I was like, whatever. I'm not even gonna waste another $1, especially if they c-bet the flop pretty frequently. I mean, that's offset a little bit by the times that you flop a monster, and they're never gonna put you on 7 deuce. But you're very rarely gonna flop a monster. So if they c-bet all the time and they don't give up and they're sticky, maybe I would consider folding the bottom of my range. But when I'm playing a straightforward range where I'm raising hands that are somewhat valuable, there's essentially none of them that I'm going to fold for 2 more big blinds after I put in 3 into a pot of 8. And I can't think of a good argument otherwise. So that session was short. They both sat out. We booked either a tiny win or a tiny loss. I think we covered some topics and got some good talk in. I know some of my videos lately have been a little more silent, haven't been talking as much, but I'm back, not sick anymore. I'm trying to play some heads up, switch it up, play some zone, keep grinding out the 6 max, play some heads up. So the bankroll's at about 1,300, I want to say, down from our high of 1,303. It was at 1,290, so we ended up booking about a 20 big blind win. Actually, we could see and hold a manager, but it's at 1,300. I'm happy with that right now. I don't play a ton of volume. I play for about an hour or 2 a day, and we're playing small enough stakes. It's going to be a grind. We're going to go through a lot of these episodes if we're going to grind all the way to 5K. It's going to be a while before we even take shots up here. And these games are both tougher and run less frequently. Now on the weekends, 100 NL runs pretty well. In fact, right now there's 4 tables on a Wednesday afternoon, someone sitting heads up. So I mean, we'll be able to get the volume in, but we are going to continue to kind of play within our bankroll, By the way, and I'll do a full video series on kind of a wide range of topics just to get better at poker, but one of those we're going to talk about is bankroll management. If you're not familiar, there's a very quick rule of thumb that you should have at least 20 buy-ins, 100 big blind buy-ins for the stakes you want to play. So in a 25-50, 100 big blind buy-in is $50, and 20 of those would be $1,000. So if your whole poker bankroll is $1,000, you could take some shots at 25-50. If it's less than that and you're grinding up, just keep grinding. Don't try and jump up in stakes. It almost never ends good. So, in fact, in today's games, I think the games are tougher. There's less people playing, and the people who do play usually take poker a little more seriously. So win rates for beginning marginal winners are generally smaller. So I might even suggest waiting until you have 30 buy-ins. Now, I keep the majority of my bankroll offline. I play live, so I feel comfortable playing. If I wanted to, I'd actually feel comfortable playing 100 now, but I want to grind out a serious sample at 25-50, and we're only at like 6,000 hands right now, which doesn't really tell us anything. If you go to buy stakes, we've played at 6,600 hands. This win rate is not sustainable, though I wish it was. If you break it down, 6 max, we're at less than 5,000 hands, 25 big blinds per 100, definitely not sustainable. We've played 2,000 heads up hands, essentially break even. We're down a quarter of a buy-in. No, a third of a buy-in. Yeah, no, a quarter of a buy-in. So really nothing to see here. In fact, if you look at the graph, running a little bit below expectation, nothing too crazy. The red line's going up, which I like to see. I don't want this crazy steep red line because that usually plummets the blue line. I'd like that blue line to come up. I've been losing at Showdown almost constantly. I'd like it to be, up here. If the red line's going to go way up, we can break even on blue, or if the blue line's going to go up, we can break even on red. But I'd like that to move in the right direction. Like I said, we're moving there. We just don't have a big sample of hands. I ran super bad against some fish. I played super bad against some fish. I'm still making mistakes. I'm still ironing some stuff out. 25-50 6 max, very small sample size of hands, but you can see running above expectation. And but we got this red line, pretty good. And the blue line is kind of through the roof here. So running very well at 6 max. No complaints there. We've had some really bad sessions, some really rough sessions. But overall, I can't complain about running bad equity-wise there. We've also been running good in card distribution for the most part. Cash results overall, doing decent. So that's everything together. You can see the 10 and L hands I played here makes the graph pretty shallow or pretty flat because the stakes are so small. And then our session of heads up today. So that's about all I want to talk about. The video's a half hour. We'll be grinding out some more heads up. It's one of it might be my very favorite type of poker. I think it's the best form of poker if you can get good at it and become a winning player. You can almost assure that you're going to be a long-term winning player if you're disciplined enough to game select, which is something we'll talk about later. And it also just helps your game tremendously for 6 max and even full ring. There's so many heads up situations you get into, and you just create the brain muscle memory, so to speak, by playing these spots over and over again heads up. It translates well to 6 max and 9 max, where I think 9 max and 6 max players probably have a bigger problem at first transitioning down to heads up. So thanks for watching. Until next time. Later.